that ultra elite get away with these problems, but when it comes to middle class, they get crushed. Think about it this way: Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, Indira Nooyi, Parag Agrawal, all great names. They all grew up in India. They ended up becoming US citizens. Where is the government's focus? Government is talking about that, manufacturing, make in India, this, that. Okay, those things are important. No one is denying it. But look at the contribution of manufacturing. Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. So let me start today's video by sharing an observation with you. So you might have noticed that everything around you is becoming more and more expensive. Be it atta, dal, chawal, curd rice, lemons, mangoes, whatever you name it, it is becoming more and more expensive. On the other hand, Vikas, Pragati, they have eloped and it is not happening. So people are becoming poorer and poorer by the day. Now you might turn around and say that, no, Akshat, you are incorrect, because the world is going through an inflation and even the US is suffering through such high inflation, and same scenario is being witnessed in India. In Ministry of Finance, RBI, Modi ji, Nirmala Sitharaman ji, they are all telling me all these things, that the world is suffering due to inflation, and as a result, India becomes a collateral damage. Okay, point taken. But have you thought about the fact that if you do a quantitative analysis of the last 10 years, you can actually calculate how much poorer have you become over the last 1 decade. And those numbers should really scare you. Second key point that you must understand is that what is it that government is doing, and are those steps sensible? So this is a very important point, because this will dictate your future over the next 10 years. Third and final point is that if you feel that government is not doing enough, then what is it that you and I as citizens can do to save ourselves? So this is the precise discussion that we are going to have, and very quick set of disclaimers. Number one, I am not against any political party. Whatever I say, I will back it up with data. So if you are itching to criticize and send me like some kind of rude comment, please at least watch the entire video. Then give rude comments. I'm happy to read it. Not a problem. But at least understand the data that I'm presenting with sources. So this is point one. Point two, because of the fact that Modi ji and Nirmala Sitharaman ji are ruling India, so I have to talk about their actions and the policies that they are making. I don't have any personal animosity towards them. My goal is fairly simple: to help all of you become rich and stay rich. That's the intent with which I'm approaching the video. And also a very big shout out to our sponsors for today, which is TaxBuddy. It's a wonderful tax saving platform. If you want to save money in the truest sense, one of the ways is to optimize your taxes, and TaxBuddy can help you do that. So do check out the platform, and you can use the link in the description box to avail 35% discount, and also get a free notice resolution and free tax planning support from their end. So let us get the discussion started. So first and foremost, let us quantitatively understand how much poorer you and I have become over the last 10 years. So we can quantitatively understand how much poorer we have gotten by looking at two data points. One is that if we study the inflation data over the last 10 years, it will give us an estimate as to what the value of a 500 rupee note was 10 years ago vis-a-vis what that value of 500 rupee note is as of now. So that is the inflation data. This talks about how much prices have gone up by. The second data point is that at what rate or speed your income has grown. So if we get this data point, then it tells us that how much net richer or net poorer have we become and at what rate. So this data is publicly available, and if you compare the 2012 number to 2022 number, it's very obvious that if you used to purchase a basket of goods in 2012, it used to cost you a weekly grocery rate of 1012 rupees. But that same basket is now costing you approximately 1650 rupees. So if you compute this price rise, the total inflation seems to come out around 60% increase. So this is the first part of the equation. The second part of the equation is that at what rate has our income levels grown. So for this, what we can do is that we can look at the GDP per capita data. So GDP per capita simply means that the GDP of India, assume it to be 100 rupees, and there are only 100 people living in India. Then 100 divided by 100, GDP per capita comes out to be 1 rupee. So that is the simple concept behind GDP per capita. So if you take a look at the 10-year data on it, because the recent data for 2021, 2022 will take time to get computed. But if you look at the last 10 years, this is what you see. So you see that roughly 10 years ago, GDP per capita in India was roughly $1,350. And now it is roughly around $1,800. So if you again compute the difference, it will come out to be how much? It will come out to be roughly 33%. So if you aggregate data point 1 and data point 2, inflation has been up over the last 10 years by 60%, and your income has grown roughly by 33%. So as a result, you have gotten net poor by roughly 30% over a 10-year window. So that is just one part of the equation. The second part of the equation is that in a country like India, the income inequality is growing by the day. So rich people are making more and more and more money, and the poor people are getting poorer by the day. So can I show you some data to prove this point? So the answer is yes. And for this, you need to understand a concept called as Gini coefficient. So Gini coefficient just tells us that in the world, what is the income disparity between the rich and the poor people. And in a country like India, you will see that that Gini coefficient comes out to be roughly 35.7. Now, this is just a data point that has been boiled down, but if you start comparing India's Gini coefficient, it paints a very dismal picture. We fall behind corrupt countries like Egypt, where income inequality is less compared to a country like India. In fact, many of the African countries are beating India on this particular matrix. So that is how bad the situation is for poor people in India. If you want to study this more quantitatively, then you can approximate the share of wealth owned by the top 1% people living in India. For example, there are very rich people, especially the 2 A's in India, and I will let you guess the name of those 2 A's in India. They are super rich, ultra elite people, and they will fall in that top 1% rich category. So people like that, if you compare with the 99% audiences in India, how much wealth do these 1% people have vis-a-vis the 99% others? So this brings us to a very interesting data point that in a country like India, top 1% control roughly 59% of the wealth. This is way off compared to countries like the US, China, Brazil, Indonesia, Mexico, Thailand, South Africa. So the situation does not look good from that particular perspective. So in essence, the wealth of majority of Indians have been evaporated by roughly 33%. Second, if you're not in top 1% rich in India, then you are losing even more wealth. So what does our government has to say on this? So here is the statement from Ministry of Finance. So according to them, the inflation in 2022 is hitting the rich people more compared to poor people. So yeah, I don't know what to say to this. So anyways, moving on. So if you go to the government and tell them that, you know what, we learned from Akshat's video that we are getting 33% poorer. What are you going to do about it? So they will say, oh, no problem. What we are going to do is that we will tax the rich. That is what we are going to do. And we will distribute whatever money is left among the poor people. So yeah, so this is the argument. But here is the interesting part that one way or the other, that high taxation that government is imposing, it comes back to you and it bites you. How does that play out? So on several of my previous videos, I have categorically pointed out to the fact that India is one of the countries where the indirect taxes are the highest. And indirect taxes hurts the poor people the most. If you are from the middle class, again, indirect taxes are going to hurt you the most. And in fact, there is a new problem in India that is cropping up. It is called as the problem of triple taxation. And let me walk you through that example and let me tell you that how is it that ultra elite get away with these problems, but when it comes to middle class, they get crushed. So consider, for example, the dividend distribution tax. So if you are investing in the stock market, a lot of middle class income people, they invest in the stock market. So that dividend distribution tax is now designed in such a way that you have to pay taxes thrice. So read this part, that dividends amount in excess of 10 lakh received by an Indian resident from a company would be taxed at 10%. Thus, the same income would be taxed thrice, twice in the hand of the company via corporate taxes and DDT, and once in the hand of the shareholder in excess of 10%. Now, you would say that, Akshat, you know what, even the corporates are getting hit due to this. But here is the interesting part, that if you go and study the ultra elite corporates, which are 0.01%, they get access to cheaper debt. For example, Nirav Modi, Vijay Mallya, they got what? They got access to cheaper debt. They ran away. Then a lot of Babas are running in India. They are running their corporations. They avail cheap credit. They corner the market. But people like you and me are getting taxed very high amount on those dividends, which is what the problem is. Now, even the categorization of ultra rich in India can be done in 3 ways. So basically, you have people who become ultra rich by running businesses and by building some kind of nexus with the government. Second would be digital entrepreneurs. Third would be people who work really hard, progress in their job, then they start making a lot of money. So what the government ends up systematically doing is that if you are a digital entrepreneur, it's not as if that you are getting some kind of massive tax rebates. It's not as if that Akshat is getting a lot of cheap funds for the government to start his own digital businesses. No, there is no such support. Second key thing, that if you work really hard, you start making a salary of, let's say, 5 lakh rupees a month, which is massive salary. You must have worked really, really hard. Now you're 45, 50, making good salary after having gone through all that grind. What happens to people here? They end up paying the brunt of taxes that are taxed in the name of being rich. And people here, they continue to avail like cheaper credit, cheaper debt, and make their life easy. So the point that I'm trying to drive home is fairly simple, that the government solution or the impression that government is trying to give out is that, hey, you know what, we are trying to solve this income inequality gap by taxing more and more. Yes, that is the case, but they are taxing these people more de facto. Now ask yourself that where do you have the chance of becoming rich? Through what route? Do you have more chances here or do you have more chances here? And where do you think you are likely to get taxed more? So with that said, the bottom line is that the government taxes whomever they can tax easily. So this by default become people from the middle class, people who are paying indirect taxes and through mechanisms like TDS and triple taxation on dividends and whatnot. So this is the reality where we are heading. Now, let me tell you the mechanics behind it, because it is very easy for a YouTuber to just go on a rant and start criticizing government. Let me present you the solution also. So just to tell you the philosophy of how the entire government is operating for the last several decades. So this is not related to the Modi ji's government. So this is related to the governments in the past also. So the philosophy is fairly simple, that hey, tax the rich and give it to the poor. That is the mechanism. That is what every politician keeps on talking about. And de facto what they end up doing is they start taxing the middle class more also, and people get crushed. So that is what precisely happens. The model that will actually work is that you create wealth and redistribute it. That's the model that will work. Think about it this way, that if you have not created any wealth, what are you going to redistribute? That here the rich are also getting poorer by 33% because of a series of government policies. Now the total wealth to be distributed is less. So what will you distribute? So in order to make everyone happier, you have to create wealth first. That is the simple model and simple commonsensical thing that we need to take care of. Now you would say that, okay, Akshat, you have talked about some weird theory. Now tell me exactly how are you going to do it? Okay, so two focus areas. Now, of course, I can't outline an entire plan, but there is a direction and focus area where we can start thinking about. So we need to do two things. Number one, India has a massive demographic advantage. Majority of our population is on the younger side, and if we utilize them more, we will be able to grow wealth in our country. Think about it this way, what is GDP made of? You can break apart a GDP formula like this also. So GDP simply means the working age population or the total population and what value every person is contributing to the economy. So if let's say there are only 100 people and they can work a lot because they are young, they are energetic, they are educated, then they can add a lot more value, maybe like $100,000 worth of value. Then this improves your GDP. It is that simple a formula. Now you will say that, you know what, okay, government is already doing it. The answer is absolutely not. There is joblessness situation in India. Even our focus area is messed up. So let me prove that point by talking about a concept of gross value add services. What are gross value add services? So let me present some data on it. So if you think about agriculture, that's a low gross value add service. I'm not against farmer. I understand their contribution to the economy and I'm very thankful. But having said that, the gross value add from agriculture to our GDP is very, very low. Just to paint a picture here, approximately 60% of our population is involved in agriculture. And what is their contribution to GDP? It is mere 20%. So imagine this, that 60% of our population is only contributing 20% to our GDP. That is how bad the situation is. The female workforce participation in India is below Bangladesh. Our GDP per capita income is below Bangladesh. That is how sad the state of the affairs are right now. So a very simple solution to this problem is that focus on areas where the gross value add is much higher and involve your young population on working on those services. And this is precisely the idea that Dr. Raghuram Rajan also gave. So let me run you through some numbers here. So if you take a look at this particular chart, what you will see is that the contribution of the service sector is 54% to our GDP and less than 20% of our population participates in that sector. Now, where is the government's focus? Government is talking about that, you know what, manufacturing, make in India, this, that. Okay, those things are important. No one is denying it. But look at the contribution of manufacturing. It's only 15% as of now. India has been trying to become a manufacturing hub and we have unfortunately not even been able to beat countries like Bangladesh or Vietnam on that category. That is how dismal the situation is. And even our government's focus is not to become a high-end manufacturer. We are still trying to manufacture like low-end things. So what gross value add will happen to the economy if you are trying to amp up your game in low-end manufacturing. That is precisely the point that Dr. Rajan also made, that India should not replicate the Chinese manufacturing model, what it is trying to currently do, because there will be a lot of backlash from international communities, and that race is somewhat already over. India has an educated young workforce. Indians are talented, they are hardworking, they are intelligent. Talk about our mathematical skills. We have geniuses coming out of small villages, towns, who do not even get proper educational infrastructure. They are able to become mathematical geniuses without any support. And you are trying to put these type of kids in low-end manufacturing jobs. India should think about being a revolutionary in their field, experiment with bold, risky ideas, and that is how it will become a leading economy in the world. This brings me to a very sad reality of India, that because of lack of opportunities, a large chunk of intelligent people, they migrate out of India. Think about it this way: Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, Indira Nooyi, Parag Agrawal, all great names. We all celebrated when they became CEOs of their respective tech companies. They all grew up in India. They ended up becoming US citizens. This is not an exception. Here is a general data point for you. You can categorically see the outflux of Indians to OECD countries. The bottom line is that a lot of youth is frustrated in India because they do not get innovative opportunities or good money-making opportunities in India. So as a result, they migrate to other countries. Now think about it this way, that if I ask you 5 best paying options right now, number 1 right now is the blockchain technology, and that is where majority of the work is happening, and engineers are getting salaries worth approximately 50 lakhs also, which is massive salary making opportunities. But here's the sad reality regarding that recently the WazirX co-founders shifted their base to Dubai. They ran probably the biggest crypto exchange in India. Same goes for Polygon Matic founders. And here is a statement from one of their founders saying that entrepreneurs who have raised funds will always try to find the best locations which have low tax infrastructural benefits like Dubai, Lisbon, and Singapore. And that is the reason why a majority of the blockchain and crypto-based startups are moving out of India to destinations like Dubai and Singapore. So to cut the long story short, unless the government provides high-end money-making opportunities to Indian citizens, we will always have the top talent experimenting in the new technology, leaving India for good. That trend has happened in the past. It is still happening. You might not like crypto. That's another side of the equation. But due to crypto, blockchain revolution is also being talked about. And a lot of Indians have been benefiting from it as of now. But with 2 of the largest companies now moving their base to international locations, what do you think the future will be? So this brings me to the final section, that what is it that you can do? So number 1, please understand the things that you can control versus not. I can make all the videos in the world, but if you don't take any action, if you don't tell more people about such things, then no change is ever going to come. We sit and criticize politicians all day. Their job is to win elections. That's it. They don't care anything beyond that. They can keep on making all the noise that, we are doing this or that. It's just not there. You have to think about things from your own viewpoint. Wherever you get the best opportunities, that is where my advice is that you should be heading. Third and final point, many a times we make the argument that XYZ country is bad. There are like set of problems associated with that country. I understand that every country will have its pros and cons, including India, including Singapore, including Dubai. But there are a lot of people in India who just keep on making a lot of noise, even without visiting and experiencing those countries for themselves. So if you get a chance, test out all the different waters and then make a thoughtful decision for yourself. That is what I will say. I am not making it explicit. What do I mean? But I hope you understand the message and look at all the facts, analysis, and figure. And do tell your friends and like this video. I will see you tomorrow.